Okay, welcome everyone to our first episode of KUDEN for 2026. That's Johan Miller here from Warrior Concepts. And as usual, I have Sensei Alexander in the wings, so to speak. So I'm sure everybody's heard it by now. I mean, we're at the 5th of the month, right? There's a phrase that shows up every year right about now, right? Um, Especially in the personal development, fitness, health, excuse me, um, centers or messaging and whatnot, right? This whole new year, new you, right? I know you've heard it, right? It sounds positive. It sounds motivating, right? And I believe it's one of the most damaging ideas in modern self-help culture. Right? What am I talking about? Right? Um, this isn't me being contrary just to be contrary, right? Um, and it's not because people don't want to change, right? But because that phrase, that new year, new you, right? Um, I think it quietly teaches people to ignore the very work that change actually requires, right? New year, new you. It suggests that you can recreate yourself without honestly assessing what didn't work before, right? The why that the goals didn't get accomplished or the New Year's resolutions fizzled out by day 2 or by week 5 or whatever, right? Um, it- Without honestly assessing, uh, without identifying gaps, without confronting patterns, right? And without doing the the unglamorous work of correction, right? And when reality doesn't cooperate, right? When motivation fades, when life pushes back, when the same obstacles reappear, right? People don't conclude that the idea was flawed. Unfortunately, people conclude that they are, and that's problematic, right? And that's why when so many people stop setting uh, New Year's resolutions altogether, right? Not because they lack desire, right? But because they've been burned too many times by promises that never respected reality. Right? So, in this episode, I'm not interested in motivation. I'm not interested in hype, right? And I'm definitely not interested in selling you another version of optimism that collapses under pressure, right? Nin is all about being able to do what needs to be done in the middle of chaos. Right? So instead, what I want to talk about during this episode is something much older, much quieter, right? And far more effective. Right? I mean, hell, it's been around for centuries, right? And not just as a neat thing, right? And I know there's going to be people that like to remind me, right? That's the old way of doing things. People don't do it like that anymore. Well, maybe that's why people are more depressed these days. Maybe that's why people are more uh, disillusioned, whatever, right? Right. What I want to cover during this episode is how real change actually happens, right? Why awareness always comes before action, and why action always comes before motivation and the the results that people are looking for, right? We're talking about causality, right? So why preparation matters more than belief, right? And why some things in life aren't meant to be reset. They're meant to be seen clearly and corrected, right? And so we'll talk about that. And I'll also touch briefly on why in our training, we don't approach goal setting the way modern self help culture does, right? And why practices like the Goma, right, the fire ceremony, aren't about wishing for outcomes, but about removing what blocks right action. Right? For now, just hold this thought, uh, whether you want to or not. If you're staying, hold this thought. If the way you've been taught to change actually worked, you wouldn't need a new slogan every January. And with that, let's get started.
So, the big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio. Real training for real people in a real world.
Look at that, 2026, and it's still my story, right? All right. Akemashite Omedetō Gozaimasu, or more formally, in Japanese, Akemashite Omedetō Gozaimasu, kotoshi mo yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Right? James, you got all that? Sure, Sensei, I got it. Anyway, nothing like throwing James on the coals for everybody else. He's kind of like my surrogate for everybody else that's listening, right? The thing that you saw on the promo screen, if you signed in early and you saw that, and that's also one of the little memes or whatever that I post to remind everybody of the episodes. It doesn't say Akemashite Omedetō Gozaimasu. It says, what does it say? It says Akeome. Right? Akeome. Akeome is a contraction, right? It's a Japanese shortened version for everyday use of Akemashite Omedetō Gozaimasu. Right? It's the Akemashite and the Omote, not Omote, Omedetō. That's a major part of it, right? So every year I cover this. Up to this point, I've been doing it pretty much the same way. This time I'm going to approach it a little bit differently. So anyway, before we jump into that and taking a look at what that phrase means, right? Because most people have been taught that it means Happy New Year. Even in the dojo, I have Happy New Year up, so I can teach from that point, right? Anyway, James, who do we have on? I see the numbers climbing. Who's on? Who do I need to say hi to?
It looks like Kyle, Alan, Dave, Maury.
Oh, my regular motley crew.
Greg from Australia.
Awesome.
Awesome. Looks like
very cool
for the moment.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. Yeah, I guess we'll just jump into things and go from there. So, is there anything else? Sound check. Right? Are we doing okay so far? Anybody say that we've got that same problem with glitches and then it speeds up?
Nobody said anything, and it sounds clear on my end this week.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm just going to jump into things. So now that I brought my notes up, I should probably ask then. Everything still sound okay?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right. So, so this is where we're starting, right? This New Year's. Well, it's one of the New Year's phrases. The Japanese have things to say leading up to New Year's. They have things to say throughout. But what I'm focusing on is the phrase that is used, friends, family, coworkers, and things like that. Generally, for about the first week, right? New Year's and after the first week after, right? This Akemashite Omedetō Gozaimasu, right? It could go a little farther or a little longer, and then that's followed with a phrase kotoshi mo yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Okay, that second line. That one doesn't translate equal. I mean, if we did it literally, it would sound like it had like a very specific like concrete context, but it's not taken that way, right? The way it's used, the person that it's used on or back and forth with and whatnot, um, it it takes on its own context. Okay, so in the business world, it would be, I look forward to working with you or doing business with you. So please assist me. In having a good relationship, that kind of thing, right? Um, in the family world, I look forward to, having more good times together or more um, family get-togethers, whatever, right? In the dojo, it would be taken to mean, I look forward to training with you more this year, that kind of thing. It's pointing to the year or to the future, right? But it's this Akemashite Omedetō Gozaimasu. Gozaimasu makes it very formal, right? But this Akemashite Omedetō, again, or shortened to Akeome. Again, this phrase gets a lot of use, right? Gets said a lot this time of year. Most people hear it as politeness, okay? But that's not how I want you to hear it. I know. There goes Sensei again, off the deep end. So, this isn't a New Year's episode designed to make you feel good, right? I don't want you to feel like shit either, but it's not about making you feel good. This is not that motivational New Year, New You thing, okay? This one's designed to help you see clearly, right? I've been talking about this for a while. My personal focus this year, right? Even my teaching focus is on a more refined expression of this character from our Mikyo studies, this Fudo Myo, right? This light king. And I know he's often seen as a wrathful deity, or, he's got this demonic look and whatnot. But that's the image that Fudo has to those who are in need of that image, right? And it's a layer, it's a place, right? But it's not the whole thing, right? Because my focus this time around the mandala with Fudo is not it's not emotionless, right? It's not harsh, but it is unmoving about what's true and unattached to what people do with that truth. I'll tell you a little story here, right? For a long time after I became a teacher, I used to jump through hoops and loops to make sure that students understood the lessons, that they saw the value of the training, that they understood, right, just how deep this stuff goes and how much practical and powerful influence it can have over somebody's life and direction and whatever, whether we're talking about the self-defense stuff or we're talking about life mastery things or whatever. Like it would drive me nuts. And then students they wouldn't practice, or they'd they'd get their first belt in the system and then quit, telling me, well, I'm really confident that I can handle myself now, right? So that I was always trying to figure out what I did wrong, right? Why are they not getting it? Why are they not seeing? Why are they not practicing? And then I had a major breakthrough. That breakthrough was that my job as a teacher, just like my teacher's job, all the mentors that I have, their job begins and ends with faithfully teaching the lessons correctly. It's a student's job to learn it correctly, to apply it correctly, right? To do the work that I had to do and my teacher had to do and his teacher, right? To get it, to not memorize the lessons, to understand the why behind the lessons so that we could apply it. right? So my job begins and ends with faithfully teaching the lessons. Okay. And that's what I mean by being unattached to what people do with that truth, with these lessons. Okay. And I want to say this early, right, in the episode. I want to say it early. I'm going to say it softly, gently, as much as I can. And I want to say this clearly, and then I'm going to move on. Right. I'm not asking to be believed. I'm explaining why belief is irrelevant. Reality doesn't change because we agree with it or we don't agree with it. And it doesn't punish us because we don't. It simply reveals. Okay? You put yourself at the wrong place at the wrong time when a fist is flying through space and it lands. You put yourself in the right place at the right time. It doesn't. It's basic causality. Okay? Again, these things don't agree. They don't change because, right? Gravity does not operate based on the belief of the masses. It doesn't suddenly switch off because somebody decides to not believe in it. Okay? I can prove it in class every time I sweep somebody's legs out from under them. Okay? You can believe in gravity or not believe in gravity, but that belief or lack of belief has no effect on gravity itself. That's why gravity should be in a realm called knowing. And there's a huge difference between believing that something is true, knowing that something is true, and something being true regardless of whether belief or knowledge exists at all. Just went over that with one of my Warrior Comeback System private students earlier, right? The job or the purpose of training is to, one, move things out of the realm of the unknown, right? We didn't even know that that thing existed, right? Into the realm of the known, okay? Now I know it exists, right? And two, to give me ways to develop those things that I want to develop, right? Or that skill or whatever it is, right? So in the realm of the unknown, we have things that I know I don't know. Like I know I can't speak Russian. And there's things that we know we know. I know how to speak English, right? But only when something is in the realm of the known can we do something about it. Do we have choice? Okay. But people like to kind of get caught up in thinking that somebody pulled that on me a while back. We were discussing the ultimate truth and whatnot, and somebody popped in with what might be true for you might not be true for me. And I said, oh, you need to define what kind of truth we're talking about here. Are we talking about subjective truth, like conventional truth? Like it might not be 2:10 in the afternoon for you if you live in a different time zone. Okay. But later on, it will be once those things kind of match up, right? But a bullet flying at our body doesn't give a rat's ass whether or not that's true for you or not. And of course, as usually happens, the dialogue stopped. It wasn't even a courtesy "fuck you." It was just done. Okay. But this is important. Okay. I'm not asking you to be believed in any of these lessons. On the floor, in a seminar, KUDEN, Whiteboard Wednesday. This is not seeking to be, I'm not, no. Okay. These lessons that have been passed to me and I'm passing on, right, only require that I explain why belief is irrelevant. This is not a religion. This is not an option. Reality in the universe will go on whether or not we're paying attention or whether or not we're even here. Okay? So, James, anybody else pop in while I've been rambling on there?
No? Okay, well, nobody else checked in.
No, sound checked in. Still doing well.
Yeah, everybody said sounds good so far.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get back to that phrase, Akemashite Omedetō Gozaimasu, right? This is the primary phrase that gets translated as Happy New Year. And there are some linguistics to this and some history behind it. I'm really not feeling like going into it. There was a word that does mean New Year that came before the phrase and was dropped a long time ago, which is why Akemashite comes out the way it does. Akemashite is like it's conjugated to reference this pivotal point, right? But that's not important, right? So what I want to do is I want to take a look at this. I want to take a look at the two primary words here, okay? Akemashite and Omedetō. Right? First, we'll take a look at Akemashite, right? The word Akemashite comes from the Japanese verb akeru, okay? It means to open, it means to dawn, right? It means to grow light. And that's important because it does not mean that something appears from nothing. Okay? Which is often where people's heads go when they think about something beginning. Okay? Light doesn't create what's there. It reveals it. Okay? And that's the part that modern New Year culture skips. Right? Excuse me. Hope I don't have something brewing. Anyway, doesn't matter. If it does, well, it'll just be a slight nuisance. Anyway, right? So the new year doesn't reset your life, right? It exposes what worked and what didn't. Okay? It's just one of those little benchmarks that we can use that has culturally, traditionally, almost universally across time, been a point where human beings have done this, right? Now, we happen to do it on the solar calendar, and most of the world does it that way. That's been influenced by the West, including Japan. But there's still lots of things that are operating based on the old traditional lunar calendar, right? That was more connected to agriculture than anything else, right? But again, it exposes what worked and what didn't. Okay, and most people, and again, I would say that it's not most people's fault because I fell into this right for years, right, till I learned to be something different, right? Most people don't fail because they lack motivation, right? They fail because they refuse to look honestly at what the light shows them. And yeah, I'm being a little bit woo-woo at the moment, okay? But akeru is if you remember our lessons last year about the Kaizen process, right? This growth and goal setting accomplishment process comes out of Japan, right? We're in this important piece that most people leave out of their goal setting, given that 98% of or less of people actually ever set goals. When I say the right way, I mean using a process and not a substitute for making a wish and blowing out a candle, right? It's that review stage. What worked, what didn't, those kind of things, okay? So I'll come back to that. And a lot of what I'm going to be covering as I move through this episode is connected to that. But remember that part, okay? So akeru is like the sun coming up on the horizon, right? The dawn, right? It's the dawn of a new day, but the Earth didn't just come into existence because the sun crested the horizon. Where the hell did the horizon come from? Right? It's very different, right? And then this other word, right? Omedetō, right? Omedetō, and anybody that's paid attention when I give you your rank certificate, right? I promote you in my dojo, right? Has heard me say Omedetō Gozaimasu. Okay, it's the last part of the quote unquote New Year's thing, right? Omedetō is usually translated as congratulations. Okay, but it doesn't mean praise. Omedetō identifies or means this moment is worthy of attention. It's not the same. Congratulations is like a prize. Congratulations is like this feel-good praise kind of thing, right? And it's not that people won't feel good, right? But what it is a call out that this moment, this accomplishment, this achievement, this moment, right, is worthy of paying attention to. Okay? Congratulations, you're still here. Right? You're still able to act. Because many people can't say that. Okay? Lots and lots of people didn't make it to January 1st, 2026. Okay? Some people, maybe even that morning, woke up dead. I know everybody likes when I say that, but you're still here. So, but that in and of itself isn't a celebration of what you've achieved, right? Not dying, it wasn't on you. Well, maybe parts of not making dumbass decisions that would have gotten you in a situation could have been on you, but just falling over dead, whatever. That's it's like being born with a certain skin color or being born in a certain culture or whatever. That's not an achievement, right? Everybody's got pride this, pride that, whatever, right? That wasn't an achievement. Okay? Be like me saying I'm proud to have 2 blue eyes. I had nothing to do with that. Okay? What Omedetō is it's recognition that you still have agency. You know what that means? Right? It means you still have the ability to act, to do, to change things, to influence outcomes, right? To achieve those things that you're working on, right? To be a positive, productive, powerful member of your family, your workforce, your team, your community, right? You still have agency. Okay. So anyway, we'll take a moment here, see if there's any questions and whatnot. But we'll come back to this again because I want to take a look at a couple of things that reinforce this. Next episode, I'm going to go deeper into not just this idea, but something very, very related. As a matter of fact, anybody that's training in the dojo or that you've maybe seen pictures on Facebook and whatnot of the work that I and a small team of folks that were gracious enough to dedicate some time to helping the dojo get back in order, doing renovations and stuff over the Christmas break, and rebuilt the kamiza. Doesn't look anything like it's ever looked for the most part. The kamidana, the shelf, mostly, right? But the face, the front of the kamiza, right? We've typically always had like hardwood paneling that was a very, very sharper contrast, like a darker wood grain contrast to what the rest of the dojo looked like, right? Paneling's not what it was cracked up to be, and it's not as available as it used to be. But I decided to do it with shoji screens that we had, 2 specifically, And I brought them together partially to symbolize a gateway that these doors could slide open. They can't, of course, right? It's symbolic. They could slide open, and one is entering into a different realm. I tell my students all the time, nothing in the dojo is there just cause. But what's hanging below the kamidana, below the shelf, right, is a scroll with a very, very, very famous or commonplace scroll with a poem on Nin, enduring and persevering. And it is not about the literal translation, right? There's a depth in that poem that we have been talking about. I've been talking about. I've been covering during KUDEN for weeks. That is at the heart of Ninpo and is at the heart of the Jōnin-level of understanding. And I think that's worth exploring more. Since my focus has been on this Fudo and Ninpo and Jōnin level and Oku, right? Okuden level exploration here for what, a couple of months now. And so I'm gonna go into that. And some of you may have seen that I shared kind of a cultural, traditional translation and write-up that one of the other instructors in the Bujinkan, Sean Askew, has done. And it's about the Togakushi, that region, and how those people celebrate this time of year, and how this is this idea, this ideal permeates everything. And the goal, well, my goal, my purpose, right? Again, this is why I don't need anybody to believe this stuff, right? That this is still there. Right? I'm not saying they're ninja running around and whatnot, but that legacy, that mindset, it governs everything that they do. We're going to talk about a little bit of that during this episode, and how it's damn near invisible, right? But anyway, James, questions, comments, anything? Like how his little window pops up. Boink.
Just Jared checked in. Said good evening.
Oh, cool. All right. So, I'll take it that I either put people to sleep or everybody's pensive and contemplating. So, well, we'll see what happens. Just keep going. All right. So, I want to talk about something here. I used to be a big fan of, and a lot of you have probably heard me say in the past, right? I'm a big fan of the do-over, right? What I mean by that is you just like start again. Like, you want to do something, or you want to take on something, whether it's you start martial arts training, or often I've mentioned it in regards to like moving from where you live, or moving from the place where you work, or whatever, to a new place, right? So it's a do-over because you're not saddled or attached to the baggage that was in the old place. Okay? It's better when it's a location shift or whatever, but that's not always possible, right? And so when I used to say I was a big fan of the do-over, what I was talking about was you get a chance to influence the way people think about you, interact with you, whatever, right? like a fresh start. Okay. But there is no do-over of events, right? You can't undo the things you've done, the things you've said to those people or whatever, right? That karma itself will play itself out. Okay. But there is a do-over of attention, of effort, of strategy, right? Of correction. Okay. And the reason that I'm mentioning this is that I have found that most people treat their life like a snapshot, like a picture, right? Like a Polaroid or whatever, right? Depending how old you are, right? A snapshot, right? A moment in time. And then plan the future as if nothing in the picture can move, can change, can be influenced. Nothing, right? In psychology, that's called time compression, right? They look at today's limits and assume those limits define the future. Okay. I see this constantly, and I'll give you an example. Routinely, I may be talking to somebody about, I don't know, let's say the Japan trip we're going to be doing in the spring, or something, right? Even if it's just talking to somebody about, martial arts or whatever, right? And that someone that I'm talking to says, "Oh, I'd really like to do this someday," right? Or "I hope I can," or something like that, right? Hope isn't humility, okay? It's not, okay? I know they think that they're processing things logically, right? But it's coming from a sense of not being ready. We'll talk about this a little bit more in a bit, but being ready is subjective. Okay? It's a feeling, right? This I'd like to, this maybe someday, I hope I can, whatever, right? Again, not humility, right? Hope is often delayed responsibility, right? The reason I say that is you don't solve 6-month problems using today's conditions. You change the conditions so that that problem or that goal or whatever is achievable. But again, people treat their lives like it's a snapshot in time. Meanwhile, they continue to age. Calendars continue to change. Seasons change. But they still operate like the job they have, the hours they have, the money they make, whatever. It's all going to be the same. Okay? In our Mikyo, for those who are practice, and you don't have to practice, right? But there's this one practice. It's basically an active meditative process, right? Japanese just generally translate to something like words of confession, words of atonement, that kind of thing, right? But in this case, we're not confessing sins to somebody else, right? And then asking for forgiveness, absolution, whatever, right? It's an acknowledgement, okay? And it's tied to, so the quote unquote the mantra or whatever itself, the thing that you're reciting, basically translates to mean that up to this point in time, I have done the best I can, right? Thoughts, words, plans, actions, whatever, right? Based on what I know, done the best I can. Okay. And a lot of it hasn't worked out so well. Okay. And then it ends with, I acknowledge and atone for all. And what that means is I'm acknowledging that I did these things. I'm responsible for the causation. I'm responsible for the effects, right? But what is atonement? Right? Atonement, people think that atonement is apologizing. That's part of it, but it's not the same. Atonement could include an apology, but apologies change nothing. Atonement is an apology through action. There I am, back on that action damn stuff again. Well, we're warriors. Warriors are people of action, right? To atone for something means to acknowledge it and act differently, to do differently. Right? Will it be better? Well, if I'm aware and paying attention to the causal results that my actions, my thoughts, my speech, whatever, right, are producing, and not just, well, that's how I do things. If you don't like it, well, you know what you can do about that. Right? Well, that's going to produce some causal effects as well, right? But people do it all the time, right? This is just me, right? This is just how I do things. Yeah, we get it. Okay, stop blaming other people and throwing other people under the bus for. Well, okay, we're ultimately responsible for all of our actions. Whether we claim that responsibility or not, something completely different. But again, we're all enlightened. You guys already know this, right? But atonement is doing differently. It's acknowledging and doing differently so that I don't reproduce the same effects, the same results. Okay. So again, people get stuck, right? And this is exactly why the Warrior Comeback program exists, right? There's not a pitch or anything for that program. It's about what it's for, right? And I've got a couple of folks going through it, and with the amount of clarity just out of a couple of sessions, right? It's pretty neat. But anyway, right? The program doesn't exist to hype people up, right? It's not about motivation. While they may become motivated to do more as they produce more results, they get more clarity and that kind of thing. It's not there to motivate, right? Can't do the work for anybody. That's also what I mean by I'm not attached to what people do with the lessons or the truth after they get it. Okay. So again, the program's not there to hype anybody up. Right? It's there to help them dismantle the false thinking that keeps them frozen. And unfortunately, a lot of this we don't even know we're doing. Just like that little discussion earlier, until we can move something from the realm of the unknown, right? I don't even know I'm doing it. We can't do anything about it. Sometimes you need somebody that's been through the same process before and has developed a certain level of sight or insight to be able to catch these things. And then, what's that? Akeru? Shed light on them. Okay? To cause light to grow. Right? So, again, if you've been burned enough times that you've stopped trusting yourself, right? That program is designed to rebuild capacity, not motivation. Couldn't give a shit less if you're motivated to do the things. Okay. My question would be, are you motivated enough for the results and the outcome of doing what needs to be done? People stop at, I don't feel motivated to do the task at hand without ever stopping to ask themselves how motivated they are to be the person or to have the things or to have the quality of life and whatnot that those things will produce. It's not the same question. Okay? It's just like when somebody says, well, I don't know. I wanted my son to take this stuff because I really want him to be safe and all that. But I asked him if he wants to do it. And he says no. And I'm not going to get into a parenting debate with somebody. But I'm pretty sure if instead of saying, as the parent, instead of saying, Johnny, do you want to take martial arts? If you said, Johnny, would you like to be punched in the face by strangers who don't care about you? No? Okay. Well, there's this class I want you to take so we can make sure that that doesn't happen. Right? Because if I'm asking somebody like a 9-year-old or whatever about something they know nothing about, or God help it, if I ask them if they want to do something that might require work, of course the human entity more often than not is going to say no. Okay? That's why we have to apply right speech, right logic, right? It's why so many people waste so much money on lottery tickets. Because what I'm giving them in exchange for a chance, right? So minuscule compared to the thing that I could get. Oh, people drain their freaking bank account, right? So if we apply the same logic, right, is practicing for 15 minutes a day really that uncomfortable compared to being shot up, stabbed up, beaten the shit out of, or having other people treat you like a freaking doormat the rest of your life because you don't know what it is about you that makes you a target, right? Or you don't have the skill set to deter that person from even seeing you on their radar. Right? I couldn't care less if somebody's motivated because it's not about the work in the moment. Motivation is born of having a vision big enough to chase after. Right? So, again, I'll mention it again later, but for now, just know it exists for people who are tired of repeating the same year with a different calendar. Okay? And that's really what we're talking about. Okay? That same shit, different day, same shit, different year. Okay? So, James, anything, any questions, comments, anything like that pop up?
No, sir. Nothing yet.
We still good sound quality?
Yes, sir.
All right. I apologize to those of you on audio only. We have had some glitches, and I think I got the technology taken care of, but I want to make sure that we're not hitting problems here. All right. So we'll just keep on going then. Right. This is the year of the fire horse in the Asian lunar-based zodiac. Right. I'm sure everybody's seen these things at least once. Right. Sitting down at a Chinese restaurant, they give you a little placemat that has the zodiac going around. I'm going to discuss this more during the actual Chinese New Year, during that episode. But for now, I'm talking about something different. And just to be clear, when I say it's the year of the fire horse, anybody that's looked at things from a general perspective has just seen that it's the year of the horse. Okay, it's 12 animals. Okay, well, this year's the horse. Okay, no, this year's the fire horse. It's not a 12-year cycle. Yes, it's true. Every 12 years, the same animal comes around. But every year, the Gogyo elements change as well. The 5 elements of the Gogyo. Okay? Water, fire, earth, metal. Water, wood, fire, earth, metal. Sorry. So they rotate. They swap out as well. Okay. So there was only I was born in the sign of the water tiger. Okay. 1962. The water tiger. Okay. I know I was born January 8th of 1963, but the way the lunar year works, it's not January 1st. So during my 59th year, right? Everybody gets this, right? You know, sure. Sensei, now you're 63 years old. No. See, on January 8th, I will have completed 63 revolutions around the sun. Okay. Everybody forgets to count the first year of 0 to 1. It's like it didn't exist. Okay? It's not a birthday, it's an anniversary, if you want to call it that. All right. Again, I'm not here to disrupt anybody's things, but clarity matters. So while I was 59, right? Because when I turned 60, it's a whole different year, whole different animal element kind of thing, right? That would have been the very next year of the water tiger in 60 years. Okay. So 60 years ago was the last time there was a year of the fire horse. Okay? Again, I'll talk about this stuff more. But for now, I want to be clear that, again, for us, right? Because you're going to see all kinds of astrology stuff out there during this time as well, right? It's right up there with the whole Happy New Year kind of thing, right? That for us, the fire horse isn't a prediction. When you read these things, right? It's not a prediction about the way your life is going to be or what's going to happen to you, right? It's not magic. It's not fate. It's symbolic. And it gives us a way to tune our mind and tune our purpose on specific points. It's like the points on the mandala, right? It's not just a whole bunch of scattered stuff. Each one is a potential that I can work on to express. Now, some of the mandala I can't, right? I will never be a birth mother, no matter what anybody says, right? But there's another character right next to that one that represents the nurturing quality that we normally think of as mothering, right? And that symbol on the character is somebody who was not the birth mother, but is doing the work. And it's not gender specific, right? Dads can be, they can show maternal qualities, right? When they're raising and whatnot. Because the way the Enlightenment teachings present things, and again, whoever in the dynamic is doing this, because you can have, husband, wife, whatever, but whoever's doing the nurturing and the raising can be seen to have more of that mother quality. Whoever is raising and rearing, another horse term, right? Is fulfilling the dad's role, which is why it's really, really difficult, right, for single parents to be both. Very difficult, right? But generally speaking, mom's job is to make sure little buckaroo doesn't die before they leave the nest. Dad's job is to teach the lessons and to apply the discipline and whatnot so that little buckaroo doesn't die after he leaves the nest. Okay? So, but again, symbolic, right? Not magic, not fate. This isn't about a prediction, right? The symbols that we're looking at here, it's the year of the fire horse, right? Fire exposes. It burns away the impure. It burns away hindrances, right? It burns away things that are in the way. Okay? And the horse moves. It's about movement, right? But it's about very powerful movement. Okay? Together, this is about a type of violence. You look at the one of the kanji, right? That's right. It's about a type of violence, but it doesn't have to be aggressive violence, right? It's more like a wild blaze, one you can't ignore. Okay, think of things like the blazing sun or a wildfire, right? That forces you to act or get burned, right? And together, right, they don't tolerate delay. Right? Just like the fire doesn't ask whether you're ready. Trust me, been through two. Okay? Doesn't ask you if you're ready. What it does, though, is it reveals whether you prepared before it arrived. Been there also. Okay? And both physical fires and firefights. And anyway, right? So this is where we're going to start talking about preparation versus readiness. But again, James, anything? Questions? Comments? You're full of shit, Sensei. I'm okay with those too. Again, not asking to be believed.
Still don't see anything. Nope.
All right. You know what? We need one of those little feedback things that we can like hit, light up their speakers and stuff just to make sure they're awake. No. Anyway, right? Again, this is not about belief. Okay. When something is true, belief is irrelevant. Okay. As a matter of fact, let me show you something. And I apologize to those of you who are on audio only. I will explain it as we go. Okay. But I'm going to do something here that I normally do in class, in Mikyo class. That is not esoteric or anything like that, but it helps. For some, it helps to get them around this thing where belief and fact and truth and whatnot are all thrown in the same basket, like they're all the same thing. And this is where problems occur. Okay, so let's see, what can I use here? Well, I'll use this. Okay, so. All right, for those of you on audio only, right, I've got my fist or my hand balled as a fist. Okay, there may or may not be something inside of it, but I'm going to make a statement. Okay, I have a black marker pen cap in the palm of my hand. Who believes me? Right? Now you can post in the comments, or you could just think in your head. Right? Who believes me? Okay. So if you said yes, you believe me, or if you said no, you don't believe me. Okay. The question would be why? Because you can't see it. Right? I'm turning my hand around. Right? Can't see it. Right? So either way, right? If you said yes or no, it's a politically based decision. And I don't mean politics like Democrats and Republicans and whatever you guys have in Australia and the UK. Not that. What I mean is it's your relationship or trust in me. Okay? Those who don't believe me either don't trust me, think I might be tricking them, or whatever, right? Those who do, right? Take me for my word, whatever, right? There's lots of other nuanced little things in there, okay? But let's do it again, okay? So let me shift here a little bit, hold my hand out, okay? So I have a black marker pen cap, right? We're not being esoteric. There's no mythological kind of thing here or well, Sensei, we could call that. No, okay? Conventional truth, right? I have a black pen marker cap in the palm of my hand. See it? Right? In the palm of my hand. Who believes me? If you said yes, no, you don't. Let's try this again. I have a black marker cap in the palm of my hand. Who believes me? Okay. For those of you on audio only, I have my hand open. There is a black marker cap laying on the palm of my hand. Okay. Who believes me? If you said yes or just thought in your head, yes, no, you don't. I'm going to ask one more time. There's a black pen marker cap in the palm of my hand. Who believes me? Now, a bunch of you stopped thinking yes or no anyway because now you're confused. It's okay. I was too, right? But here's my next question. Can you see it? I know, those of you on audio only, you can't see it, but I just told you there is a black marker pen cap on the palm of my hand. Can you see it? So you know it's there. So where's belief? It's irrelevant. Belief doesn't exist when knowledge does. Okay? Belief is an expedient that we need to use in some cases, in some instances, when we don't have the information we need, but we need to navigate in that realm. Okay? Clarity matters. Okay? So I know it looked and sounded like a trick, but it's not a trick. It's a clarity moment. Okay? Just like if somebody pointed across the street or whatever and says, "Hey, what color is that house over there?" Now, I know what color the houses in my neighborhood are, but let's say I was just visiting a friend's house, right? And they pointed over there and they said, "What color is that house?" Okay? I'm going to say, and let's just say that what I see is white. I'm going to say it's white on this side. I'm not just going to make the general statement that it's white, assuming that the house is the same color all the way around. Well, Sensei, now you're being nitpicky. No, Sensei's being clear. Okay? If we can't get this simple thing down, then how the hell are we going to assume or get ahead of the thinking or logic process of a bad guy who's trying to kill us? Okay? So clarity matters. All right, James, before I jump into the next part here, questions, comments?
Jimmy said konbanwa, Happy New Year.
Stay Omedetō Gozaimasu.
Dave said seeing is not believing.
Seeing is not believing. Correct. Seeing is not believing. Could also be not understanding as well, but that's for a whole other lesson, right? Because as senses go, the eyes are the easiest to deceive. Ask magicians. Do it all the time. And the first thing they tell you is the hand is quicker than the eye. No, it isn't. Not by a fucking long shot. Not by a long shot. But getting you to believe that, okay, it's half the trick. It's kind of like Houdini. Anybody know Houdini's? Houdini was known mostly by being an escape artist, right? But he was a magician. Okay, and Houdini published a challenge that there wasn't a safe that he couldn't get out of. Like you could lock him in it, and there's no way that he couldn't get out, right? And this company took him up on it, right? It was like the best state of the art safe, everything, right? It's impenetrable, right? And what he did leading up to it was, telling him, look, don't give me. As a matter of fact, when they presented other models, right? Don't give me like cheap shit. I mean, anybody can get out of that, right? And actually, the way it first started was he was going to get into the safe. That's what it was. He was going to get into their safe. And what he said was, if you really want to present me with a challenge, you'll lock me in it and force me to get out. And they thought, yeah, let's do that. So they lock him in this thing, and in a couple of minutes, the door opens up and he walks out. Right? And everybody was just absolutely perplexed. Okay. So everybody thought, that he had an inside man, he had some kind of weird tool or whatever. No, I mean, he did have a tool. It was a little screwdriver. But saves are designed to keep people out, not to keep people in. Right? And so the magic wasn't in getting out of the safe. It was to convince them to not have him pick the lock, but to put him in the safe. Because all he has to do is take a panel off and align the tumblers from the inside. They only line up one way. put the panel thing back on, and then walk out all dramatically. Okay? So being able to see somebody's agenda, or being able to operate in a way that people are always chasing the wrong route when they're trying to get you. Right? That's just very very Jōnin-level kind of stuff. Right? As a matter of fact, they don't even think of challenging. Okay. Excuse me. And meanwhile, right? And again, I'm going to talk about this during next episode. Everybody tends to think, ninja, geinin, all the tricks and neat kind of things, right? But regionally, Togashi, that whole Togakude region, I'll talk about several different connected ones, but the mindset of the people, their festivals are wrapped around Jōnin level invisibility and looking like you're absolutely doing nothing and nothing touches you. Like, how is that even possible? But again, we'll save that for next episode. All right. Anything else pop up?
Kyle said that's a fascinating concept. Belief is irrelevant when there is knowledge.
Yeah. Do you believe in this thing? Do you believe? Yeah, you have to have an expedient when you don't have the information. Okay. But when you have it, again, we have to be able to separate those things to be able to tell the difference between belief, that which works for me and allows me to get things done, but other people are getting the same results with a whole different belief system. Okay? Interesting. Right? But it suffices, right? Facts they're subjective, but they're things that we all agree on. Okay? Are we on the imperial measurement system, or are we on the metric measurement system? Because if James ask me how long something is, and I say it's 27, we both better be talking about the same thing, because otherwise something's going to come up really, really big or really, really short. Right? Same thing with time zones and those kind of things, colors, whatever. It allows us to navigate things, right? And not a whole lot of wiggle room for argument unless, my wife is involved and she goes, well, I wouldn't call that fire brick red. I would call that more of a tomato. Like she has the swatch in her head, right? And then there's universal truths. And those are things that cannot be argued logically or rationally. They just are, like gravity, right? Yeah. So even though people try to do it, right? So I don't argue beliefs. I don't argue any of those things, right? Especially beliefs, and I don't argue truths. Okay? Again, I don't need people believing or not believing me. It's not my concern. Okay, this is not a popularity contest. Okay, because what I'm passing on, these lessons and whatnot, belief is irrelevant. Okay? What students have to do is run the same process to learn that these things are indeed true, so that they can know it for themselves, use it for themselves, do it for themselves, that kind of thing. Right? When we follow belief, when we follow those gut level feelings, that's where we get conned. That's where we get thrown off. Right? People not believing somebody because that person sounds brash, but believing this guy over here because he sounds smooth and controlled and whatnot. Yeah. So do con men. Right? Truth doesn't taste good, doesn't feel good, doesn't have to. Okay? Doesn't require you to like it. Okay? What's that one thing we have? Right? Nobody ever said you had to like it. Okay? That's the truth. Okay? All right. Back to it. All right. So I started to allude to this, but I'm sure we've all heard somebody say, I'm not ready. I don't feel ready. Now's not a good time, or it's not the best time. I don't feel motivated. Right? Same thing. Right? It's all the same thing. Right? Readiness is a feeling. It's subjective. Preparation, on the other hand, is a process. It's a path of action. Right? One is feeling, the other one is doing. Right? One of my biggest pet peeves in today's culture is that linguistically shit has shifted to where people use the word feel where the word think belongs. I feel like that shouldn't be right. What the hell is your baseline? What's your justification? What's causing that feeling? Well, it doesn't seem fair. Well, that's a feeling again. Okay? What makes it not fair? Okay? Where is this coming from? Well, it's just how I feel. Well, you're wrong. You might be right, but who the hell wants to play the lottery every day of their life going through life? Okay? So I call people on it all the time. Are you using the word feel where the word think belongs? Right? I don't think this is fair is very different from I don't feel like it's fair. When somebody says I don't feel like it's fair, they're on the losing end. Or when they think of winning and losing games. Right? I don't think this is fair. Okay. Why? Then you better be able to tell me, okay, well, like he's getting every time he deals, he's getting 3 cards and I'm getting 1. Like, I don't think that's fair. Okay. Well, what are the rules of this particular game? Okay. Yep. Sure enough. Okay. So again, right, from the outside, this is where people get thrown. From the outside, preparation looks like nothing. People just look like they're doing their stuff. Okay. From the inside, it's everything. Okay. Anybody, I don't know, close to as old as me, remember when who wrote the Harry Potter series? Shit, name was in my head just a second ago. James, who am I talking about? Doesn't matter. Or any of these folks that, you know, just they're overnight success. Right? There was a group out when I was much younger, right? Huey Lewis and the News. Okay? Overnight success, right? Had back-to-back, you know, hits and ended up doing the musical score, a bunch of the songs for Back to the Future and stuff like that. Huey Lewis and the News had been a thing, had been a group for 37 freaking years before they hit it big. Right? What's her name? While she was writing those books and everything and getting turned down by every goddamn publisher that she submitted things to, right? Working as a waitress. Right? People absolutely freaking notice the results. But the preparation looks like nothing. They can't see that. And when it's time to do that, that's even worse, right? But that's the point. From the inside, it's everything, right? Because it's acquiring what's needed. It's removing friction. It's planning access. It's rehearsing quietly, right? It's all the practice that, you know, the instructors, Hatsumi Sensei, whatever, right? It's big time in Hisuke Sensei's book, his new book on the Gyokuryu. All this stuff that was done, just him and a friend going down by the shore and practicing leaping on sand. That'll change how you freaking move your legs, right? Because you can't push off of it. You can try, however, right? Nobody sees that. What they see is what the teacher can do, which is why the teacher often gets the, well, you just don't understand. No, maybe the problem is the teacher does understand. Okay. Prepared people don't move faster. They see what's needed sooner. This is not just Ninpo. This is the path of the Jōnin. Geinin are reactive. Okay? Shit's happening. They got to go stop it from happening. Chunin use control and manipulation to steer things, to affect things. Okay? But they can be discovered because all paths lead back from that chain to them. The Jōnin is influencing things in a way that nobody would ever think that they did it. Okay? So, it's not the same. Okay? Catch yourself when that thought or feeling or the words come out of the mouth about whether or not, right, you're ready, or you will be ready in 4 months or 6 months or a year, or, gee, I just don't know. Okay? Who said you had to? See, the the samsaric or the backwards thinking is not the enlightened way to do it. The backwards way of thinking is to think that you have to have all your ducks in a row to take that vacation or to buy that car, whatever it is you're going to do in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, year, whatever, right? The backwards thing is thinking that you have to have everything in place now to do that then. But if you freaking had it in place now, why are you not doing it now? Right? But the reality is when I set that goal and I buy my plane ticket to go to Japan, or I promote that trip on a given set of dates, guess what? I put things into motion that cause people to either start inquiring or to put down their down payments or to pay for the whole thing or whatever, right? Guess who's going to Japan? Me. Why? Because now I have to have those things in place, right? The decision to act forces action. So maybe the problem isn't that people don't want to understand that process, is that process is scary as shit because the responsibility falls back on them. Okay? But this is the difference between outcome thinking versus condition thinking. Okay? And I know they sound similar, but they're not. Okay? That's why I tell students, again, sometimes to their frustration, right, to stop scrolling technique videos for a while. Okay? It often makes no sense. This is why, especially Mikyo, but Ninpo as well, right, is often called crazy wisdom, right? Traditionally. Okay? Because the conventional process doesn't allow it to compute. The conventional understanding doesn't allow it to compute. Okay? Why? I'm scrolling technique videos. I want to learn stuff. Okay? Right? We'll see how sensei's doing it, whatever. Okay? But technique videos show outcomes. If we can't control the moment that things are happening or have the awareness and insight to recognize what they're doing before the first attack comes, that outcome is going to be a dream and a wish. Okay? What I tell them is, I'm not telling you to not scroll. Just change your focus. Stop looking at technique videos. start looking at CCTV or even fights in the ring and stuff like that, right? CCTV, for those of you who don't know, is closed circuit TV. Right? It's video cameras that are put up around businesses or wherever, right? That catch actual attacks happening. Technique videos show outcomes. Real footage shows conditions. Right? Outcome-based thinkers ask, what would I do? That person came at me like that. Right? Condition-based thinkers ask, what would need to already be true? What skills would I need to have? What type of awareness, what type of knowledge would I need to have, right? That would already have to be in place for me to produce that outcome. Everybody thinks they can just start from he's throwing a punch and I'm going to do ichimonji and a counter strike and and it's all going to work out. But there's a whole process. There's a whole bunch of conditions that have to be right. Angling, pressure, receptivity, awareness, all of that to be in the right place at the right time so that even if we just look at a kata, right? Going slow and going step by step is one thing. But on the fly, right? To complete a kata, each move before the end, that outcome that everybody wants to get to, each move before that, angling, the right counter strike, the right amount of force that moves them or doesn't into a certain position that naturally sets up the next piece has to be there or the kata falls apart. Now, when we're going slowly and my partner's helping, that's one thing. But when we start applying more pressure and your partner's not so compliant, right, now we have to earn each technique. Okay? We have to create the right conditions to produce the right outcomes. Microcosmically, step by step, to get the macrocosmic outcome. He's on the floor in this lock or whatever, right? And that shift, that mental shift, changes everything. It's not the same. People are attracted to this lineage or that lineage or whatever, but again, and I did it. This is not me on a pedestal. This is not talking down to. This is a sharing of, right? The outcome based thing. We all want that. We all want to be able to do that thing. But the process is what gets us there. Okay? It's not just about learning physical moves. It's about changing how we look at things, we see things, and we process things. We have to be a different person. But again, see, people's brains already lock up as soon as I say that because they've taken a snapshot of their lives and themselves and operate as though nothing can change. I've been doing this for so long. You can't teach an old dog new trick. Yeah, okay. Guess who made up those frickin' sayings? People that were making excuses for shit. Okay? Before we adopt other people's sayings, we need to think about not the outcome, which is the saying, the conditions, the belief system, laziness, effort level, whatever, of the kind of person that would have come up with that saying. Because if we're going to be like the master teachers, we need to start speaking like, right? A bunch of years ago, I don't know, was it in the 80s, 90s, something like that? There was that whole what would Jesus do thing. There was the book, and then there were these like bracelets and stuff. And then somebody came out with a similar thing. What would Buddha do? And then people were wearing that, whatever. Okay. That whole thing was about understanding how they thought, how they saw things, and how they processed their world, right? To be able to do what they did. It wasn't about copying somebody else, although there is a lot to be said about faking it till you make it, but it's not faking it because you just came up with it. Well, I think that's what he's doing. No. That's why we get mentors. Right? Because a mentor will tell you exactly how they think, how they see, and how they do things. Whether or not we want to do that same thing or think that same way or whatever, it's completely up to us. But we go to a mentor because we want the same kind of results. And then when the mentor tells us what we need to do or how we're mistranslating things, okay, everything changes. Okay? There's a huge difference, right? Outcome versus condition-based thinking. Right? One thinks in terms of outcomes, right? I want the end result, but I don't want to do all the stuff that he does to get it. Maybe I can just, like, I don't know, wish on a candle, blow out a candle, wish on a star or whatever, and still get the same thing, right? The condition-based thinker, right? You may have heard me use a different term in the past, a strategic thinker. Okay. What would already need to be true? Because as soon as I answer that question, I now have a roadmap. Okay. These things would have to be true. I have that. I have that. I don't have that. I don't have that. I have that. I think I understand that. Well, guess what? The things I don't have, I think I understand, and whatever, right? That goes on a list, to-do list. As soon as I accumulate these, well, then I should be able to do that. No problem. Right? We have to, well, you don't have to do anything. I take that back. I apologize. Right? I would never tell you what you have to do. I would highly recommend that if you want certain outcomes, there's only certain causes that produce those effects. Okay. Well, I'll talk about that in a bit. I'll let you hanging for a little bit here. Anyway, let's just jump into this next piece. Okay? So, anybody ever heard the term, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it? Okay? I know none of us have ever said it. Okay? I have not said it in decades. Okay? That was another one of those things that I used to say as well. Okay? It's a procrastination tactic. Okay? What I just said was, this is something I don't want to do or have to deal with right now, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay? But experience has taught me, and I'm sure it's taught several other ones, because I know that I've got some combat vets and whatnot, just like myself, listening in, or law enforcement vets, or maybe you're still active, right? But if you've ever been in the hot seat, under fire, and I don't mean that figuratively, okay, then you'll know what I mean when I say that experience has taught me that some bridges are not meant to be crossed. They're meant to be avoided entirely. What I say to students in class is, there's some bridges you don't want to get to. There are some bridges that worrying about crossing the bridge when you get there, you won't have time for preparation. Okay? Zanshin, awareness, moment-to-moment awareness, right, exists so that we can reroute early. We can adjust course on the fly. Okay? I just mentioned this again to somebody today because they just lost a family member, which is just natural, right? Natural causes. But they lost somebody else from the old neighborhood that, you know, they see it as a starting already or going around or whatever. But I said the same thing I always say. If danger is unavoidable where you live, right? The strategy isn't to fight better. The strategy isn't to have better awareness so you can be looking over your shoulders or grow eyes in the back of your head. The strategy is to friggin' move. Okay? The cost of moving is finite. People are like, you don't understand how much it costs to move and all that. Yeah, but the cost of staying compounds daily. Eventually, luck runs out. Okay? The cost of moving is heavier up front, but it relieves a whole lot of problems afterwards. It's like the cost of martial arts, right? Not just in money, time, effort, and all that kind of stuff, right? Up front. I get it. But once you develop those skills, especially the skills that really matter, Ninpo skills. I get it. Lots of people get in martial arts because they've got visions of sugar plums. I mean, no, they have visions of wiping the floor with somebody's ass because that person looked at them sideways. Except that getting involved in that kind of fight comes with lots of risks. Like you're not knowing a bunch of shit because it's not in a ring. Okay. And, no, we all know, right? So, but the cost of training, right? I have not had somebody even threaten me, like seriously threaten me, right? Get jackwagons online that are anonymous and stuff. But that doesn't mean that I don't keep an eye, right? But I have not been seriously threatened by anybody in decades. And it's not, I mean, it shouldn't. Look at me. Old, fat, bald, right? Shit. I should be a shit magnet. Right? I should be walking around with my head down, my eyes at the sidewalk, right? Speaking to everybody nicely because I want to start something. But I don't. It's not because I have a death wish. It's because of Zanshi, because of awareness, right? And that's Hazumi Sensei's always talked about that. Right? The irony is that the longer you train, the better you get, not just in the physical skills, the life skills, right? In the situational management skills, all of those. The less likely you're going to need until eventually you don't need the physical skills. That's Ninpo. Yeah? We start with Ninpo Taijutsu, right? Body art, self-defense, I get it. Yeah? Cross into, even though people don't talk about it, into the Chunin levels of things, right? Ninjutsu, manipulation and control factors and things like that, right? And those who really get the Okuden level stuff, right? What causes the conditions that would paint a bullseye on my back or that would cause that jackwagon to always think they can come at me or manipulate me or, undermine me or whatever, right? Everything changes. But the cost of staying in an environment like that, it's just like any gambling game, roulette, craps, whatever. The problem compounds. Okay. So, anyway, time for another little break here. James, anything? Questions, comments?
Just Dave said it was J.K. Rowling.
No, there you go. Thanks, J.K. Rowling. Thanks. I don't know how I could forget that. If Trim was on, she would never let me live it down. So, all right. I alluded to something earlier. People focused on winning and losing, those kind of things, right? This is something, again, from this very, very high level of training. Since I covered this in the last couple of years, decade maybe, going into this idea the first stage that I recall, I'm sure lots of other seeds got planted, but the thing that really pops into my head is him telling us to drop the concern for winning and losing, because they both make you do stupid things. Right? This imperative need to win, fear of losing, whatever. You'll do things that aren't so controlled, right? But then in the later parts, we're supposed to drop even the notion of fighting itself. Even this person's coming at you. But either way. So where I want to go here for just a minute, right, is this very high level Ninpo kind of not kind of idea, right? Just generally speaking in Ninjutsu. Right? There's a it's kind of like a koan, but I mean it's not a poem in the general sense, but it's wrapped around the shinobi, right? The endurance, perseverance, that kind of thing, right? So I think it comes out of the Togakure Ryu, but it might be Kumogakure Ryu. Right? They all kind of blend together for me at the moment. Where it says that if you could not prevent a physical attack, right, and you had to harm the attacker, this is the lowest form of nin, the lowest form of shinobi, lowest form of ninpo. Okay, and if you understand the lessons from the lineages, the whole reference is around the fact that you've been identified, right? You've caught, whatever. Okay. If you can control the attacker's intentions when they want to attack you, but you can control them in a way that deters them from attacking. Okay? This is a middle level of shinobi. Okay? But if you can control yourself in a way that the attacker never sees you as a target to attack, that's the highest form of shinobi. Right? And that's not literal. That's it's a kind of a summarizing of those kind of things, right? But in this context, and again, this is not for all mindsets, which is why, to me, it's easy to see why the majority of the Bujinkan, they didn't just gravitate to Budo Taijutsu in 1998 at the Princeton Taikai, when Natsumi Sensei said we needed to focus on that for a while because people didn't understand Ninjutsu. And since Ninjutsu is a variation of conventional warrior skills and thinking and mindset and all that, then how do you do a variation of something you don't understand? But why it's lasted this long. And it's because people are stuck on winning and losing. It's fear-based. Or it's ego-based. Either way, right? But at this level, winning is not ninjutsu. Yes, brute force can win. We see it all the time. But brute force isn't strategy. Yes, it is. Just throw everything you got at him. Okay, well that's it. That's like what's that opening line in the Ghostbusters, the first Ghostbusters movie, right? When the ghost comes into the library, and one guy goes, I know what to do. Ready? Get her. And then this ghost is, whatever, right? And the very next scene, get her, Ray. That was your plan? Get her, right? That's what brute force as a strategy is, right? In Japanese, it's chikara kurabe, right? This brute force, direct, head-on, two ramps going at things, right? that's a contest, right? But just like brute force isn't a strategy, winning a fight doesn't make it ninjutsu. Nagato Sensei, just when I say recently, just, I don't know, last year or so, said that. Don't confuse winning a fight with it being ninjutsu, right? With it being strategic, right? I know there's a comfortable quote that's circulating on the internet from one of Hatsune Sensei's teachings or one of the books or whatever, right? Because it's just like the sound bites in the news that lulls everybody around. See what he said. See what he. Yeah, you took a 2.5 second or a 5 second snippet out of a whole conversation. We're just going to clip this line out of the context that it's wrapped in, right? And then use that. Did he say it? Well, yeah, he said it, but what was the context it was wrapped in? Well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it kind of does, right? He, she, it, whatever, right? So it's the same thing, but there's this quote circulating around that if you do something and it works, it's ninjutsu. Okay. What's the whole context wrapped around that lesson? Anyway, all right. So again, winning isn't ninjutsu. Yes, you can win with brute force, right? But winning doesn't make it ninjutsu. Force amplifies structure. It does not correct it. Do you understand what that means? Some of you that are in class know what I'm talking about, right? Where as long as we're going slowly, everything goes well. But as soon as we turn up the heat, what comes out of muscle memory? The old structure, right? What else do you hear from me in class? If you're doing something wrong, doing it harder and faster doesn't make it right. It makes it wrong harder and faster. Okay? And this is what Hatsune Sensei learned when he got ill and almost died a long time ago, right? Had this stomach thing. Because he had trained so hard all the time. And, he was just believed in this kind of brute force kind of stuff. And then it was just like that, stripped away from him, right? And he had to come to understand that if what you're doing only works when you're stronger, you're younger, you're faster, you're luckier, you don't have a method. You got a lot of heart, and you have the resilience of being harder, faster, stronger, whatever, right? Like I said, brute force can win as long as you own stronger, faster, younger, luckier, whatever. As soon as you don't, everything that you worked hard for goes away. Right? And this is not just a ninjutsu thing, and not just like a ninjutsu fighting thing, right? The fall of the stock market, okay, way back in the 30s. Everybody that was rich on paper was fine as long as the stock market didn't crash. As soon as it did, well, a lot of them, their skulls crashed into the cement when they jumped out of windows. Okay? So they didn't have real wealth. They had this delusion. Okay? Works as long as everybody's playing the same game. But if the core, if the Jenga pile drops, well, then you have a fucking mess. Okay? What we're learning is process. Okay? Process of thinking about things, the process of looking and knowing what to look for, the process of moving and controlling based on the type of attack that's coming in. Right? The process of attacking the body in a way that you don't need power and force because you're affecting either structural or support and mechanism chains. Right? If I hit this point here, it causes this. It's because it's connected to these muscles and whatnot. It creates a collapse, right? Or if I strike this bone on this angle or whatever, I create a crack And now, because the structure's disrupted, anything that's connected to it can't operate effectively. Right? I just outlined Koshi Jutsu and Koppo Jutsu in a nutshell. Right? But it's understanding processes, not just fighting harder or whatever. If we have to fight, do it smarter, not harder. Because harder only works as long as you've got the bigger army, or at least it's an even thing and you get a 50-50 chance of not, taking a dirt nap. All right. James, questions, comments, anything you want to throw on top of this fire?
No, I don't see anything.
Okay. So I'd say, what the hell does this have to do with Happy New Year and Akemashite Omedetō Gozaimasu? Every lesson. Here's a little thing, right? I'm actually wearing like an older T-shirt or an older shirt from the dojo, right? Miller's Martial Arts. You guys can see this, right? The dojo originally wasn't Warrior Concepts, but long before that, right? It was Miller's Martial Arts from very early 90s, I think. I don't know exact date then, to October 24th of 2004. I know, because that's when I did the name change on Warrior Concepts. But I changed to Miller's Martial Arts because, well, I was told that logically, right, since people can't pronounce Bujigan Kuryu Shibu, right, probably wouldn't be coming in or whatever. And so I changed to this, and then I got a very different group of people coming in, and my promotional messages had to be just very, very different, right? It was, instead of educating people on the benefits of training, I had to focus on, like, why should they train with us instead of somebody else? Okay, well, here's the benefits of training. But if somebody in their head can't tell the difference between karate or BJJ didn't exist then, but either way, BJJ or MMA or jiu-jitsu, whatever, right? They don't know the difference, then what are the benefits? Because all that matters to somebody who hasn't come in yet is the way they think about things. And if they don't know the difference, or their cousin's college roommate's brother's Uncle Bob, whatever, right, said Taekwondo or tic-tac-toe or whatever is best, and that's what they're operating on, well, shit, right? So what I did was I went from something where it was Japanese and like I had to explain things in a very odd way, and I'll circle back to that. And I switched over to this thing that I didn't realize I did myself more harm than good. Not because naming something Japanese is good, okay? It's not, right? Not without a byline or something that gives people an in, and I didn't have one of those. But what caused us to switch from Miller's Martial Arts to Warrior Concepts International was strategic, condition-based thinking. Okay? Because to get an outcome, what's necessary? Okay? Well, to cut through the noise, one of those is curiosity. Warrior Concepts International. Huh. What are they all about? Well, how's that different from anything else? Well, listen to this. Miller's Martial Arts, Burns Taekwondo, Kim's Tang Soo Do. I could go on and on and on and on, right? Tell me how they convey the difference. They don't. They convey sameness. Okay? Just like if you look at most Bujinkan websites that go the traditional route, they talk about the same things. Tatsumi Sensei, Takamatsu Sensei, this lineage, that lineage, or whatever. Oh, great. Okay. When are they going to tell you what benefits you're going to get? What will you be able to do? Will you be more confident? Will you be faster? Will you think differently? Whatever. What what will I be able to do after I go through this stuff? Because that looks the same as like the Kajikembo and the traditional Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, whatever website I was just on. Except the names are different. I can't pronounce them either. Okay. Now looking back on things, what I was lacking when it was Bujinkan Kudu Shibu, because I wasn't a black belt yet, so it wasn't a dojo. Shibu is a training group or a group. What was lacking was, on my part, communication skills. Some people could call it marketing, whatever, but in a way that conveyed those benefits, that cut through the noise and got people over this word that they could learn later. So by the time I got to Warrior Concepts International and could define or focused on helping people uncover that warrior protector to live to that ideal. This art is about concepts, principles and concepts. And we are tied into and affiliated with like-minded groups and a network, right? Internationally. And I was teaching internationally as well. So then once people got in, then they could learn, Japanese names of the school and all that. So very different, right? So I intentionally wore this because this is another one of those things where we can think about things one way and we can think we have our head wrapped around it. But there's a whole bunch of stuff underneath the surface that was preventing success, that was preventing the kind of growth and whatnot moving, but I couldn't see it. Okay. Again. So, something I said earlier, this wasn't alluded to, I was discussing the things on Togakushi and how people think and this idea of invisible action, right? Like you're doing stuff, you're preparing and you have things set up in a way, and the way you go about doing things that looks absolutely normal to everybody. They don't understand how, like, you don't get pissed off at the same things that they do or everybody does, or they don't affect you the same way, or you're not thrown off by things, or in the middle of the chaos, right? You're weathering the storm, dealing with things, but you always seem to have breathing room. And when the storm is done and everybody else is panting and breathing hard and trying to collect themselves and recover from the damage and, put their lives back together and all that, you just go back into motion again where you need to go because you got it. This is what people missed when, my house caught on fire, when the dojo was affected by that explosion and a fire, right? What most people didn't see was the stuff in the background, meetings that James and a couple other people and I had on a regular basis, and Shoshi Whistler and I looking for locations and whatnot. What they saw were the emails coming out, giving them an update, right? And then the new place, and then all the stuff with the pictures between or over the Christmas break, right? Of the new renovations. Okay. Oh wow. Yeah. Except what was going on in the background with getting things delivered, getting or picked up or whatever, and arranging for people and right. Okay. So this, we're going to call it invisible action, right? Is tied to Jōnin-level thinking. Right? Ninpo, highest level thinking. Right? Because people assume that if they don't see action, that nothing is happening. It's like when they see the teacher standing there in Shizen, waiting for the punch or the sword or whatever to come, they think that nothing is happening. They think the person is waiting. This is how people think about the nin symbol, right? Well, it's patience. It's enduring. It's persevering. But they think of it in a passive way. It's very active. It's very proactive. Right? It's not that nothing is happening. Right? And to just say, well, they're aware. Yeah, of what? What do they want? What are they looking at? What are they watching for? Not assuming, right? Watching space grow in certain areas, space diminish in other areas, right? Getting a sense of feel for when he clicks to go, right? When that thought to go occurs microseconds before the muscles in the body start to move his body. Feeling the intent. And then he changes his mind, or then he decides to go again, or when there is no intent because he's just going through the motions and there's nothing to feed off of. Again, most people assume that if they don't see anything, then nothing's happening, right? But at higher levels, action becomes indirect. Okay? Nobody can see the muscles inside my legs, around my knees, firing to lift the joint up so it's in a hovering position, so movement becomes easy and graceful, as opposed to they just see a static leg, so they have a static leg. And that's why when they move, they lift up before they can even move in a direction. It's just one of a bunch of things that at that high level, you can't possibly, the left brain's not thinking about those things. The thinking about those things was done through the process of ingraining and integrating those things into muscle memory. Right? So again, action becomes indirect, right? The best outcome, and this is going to sound a little counterintuitive, but the best outcome at the Jōnin level is that nothing needs to be explained later. Why did you do that? How did you? Right? More often than not, people go, wow, you were lucky. Okay? Yeah, looks that way. Man, you must be lucky. You can go to Japan like, every year or every other year. And man, you must be lucky working for yourself. And oh, so what you think? Yeah. Interesting. Okay. But that nothing needs to be explained later because, well, it must have been luck. It must have been, who knows, right? You've got a rich Uncle Bob or whatever, Aunt Irene or something, right? That keeps funding you when, but that's Jōnin logic. Things never come back. Right? So the Akuryu, the dawning, allowing light to grow. Right? I don't want you to think about these things. I want you to process these things. Right? If you don't process them and you don't understand, you don't look for the gaps, right? Because that's, again, this is a pivotal point, right? The Omedetō, right? This is a moment worth paying attention to. I don't just run into the new year, new you, setting my resolutions, and I'm going to, through willpower alone, blast forward. Not if you keep doing the same shit that you were doing before, or not if the same gaps or lacks or whatever still exist. No. Okay? No boat moves out of the harbor still dragging the same anchors behind it. I just made that up. You like that? Anyway. Okay. So, again, there's a huge difference, right? Nobody is asking you to be ready. Okay? It's not about being ready. It's about being prepared. Okay? And it's not about being like a hamster and jumping on a wheel and running your ass off, but go nowhere, right? It's about understanding the process. Or at least until you understand the process, following the process. James, what's that? There's a comedy meme that keeps getting passed around Facebook every once in a while. I don't know if it shows up on Instagram or whatever. We post on those things, but I don't I'm not one of those people that like, pick up my phone because I'm going to check things and then it's 2 hours later. I'm not that guy. But I have seen ones where, what is it? If you're still not able to make the technique work, try doing what Sensei told you the first time. Isn't there something like that?
I think so.
Yeah. Are we running into a sound issue?
No?
Okay. So again, this is a little plug, right? Coming up here in a little while, and I mean like mid-month, I will be opening the doors on a program. It's called the Ninpo Gateway Program, right? And this Ninpo level stuff is it's exactly what this is built around. Okay, this program is not technique collection. It is not performance, right? But it is all about learning how to think, prepare, and move before things become problems. Okay. It is a live group program, as almost all of my programs are, and then later people can get it as a recorded thing. But that allows the kind of the pilot group to help kind of develop it based on questions and those kind of things, right? But again, it's a live group program, and it's for people who are ready to stop training reactions or stop doing reactionary training, right? And start training in causality. How do I cause the effects instead of having to reactively deal with the effects that I or others that I allow myself to be around or influenced by caused? Okay. So if that resonates, again, the information will be available shortly, right? So again, if it's if you think it's for you, great. If not, don't worry about it. Okay. All right. So that being said, I mentioned this something like this earlier, and then I took a little sidestep. Right when I started teaching, I was attached to truth, and I was attached to outcome. Okay. I mentioned that earlier. Right. Had the lessons, but I was so worried and focused and whatever on students getting things, and not in a healthy way. I mean, like if they didn't get it, they didn't figure it out, if they didn't practice or whatever. I didn't take it personally like they were slighting me. I took it as though I was doing something wrong. Okay, can you imagine the struggle that caused? Right, and eventually, I learned. Okay? My job is to teach clearly, to show the way, to pass on the lessons. Okay? Learning and knowing must be done by the student. I don't install understanding. I make it possible. I cannot do it for you. Nobody can. Right? And this is not an academic hear the lesson, automatically be able to do it. Right? This is something where you're going to get 10 or 20% from the teacher. And not because I'm withholding anything. This year, I'm going to withhold more. Okay? Not because people don't deserve to get things. They do. But there's a difference between a mind that gets an answer to something and stops learning, stops questioning, stops exploring, and one who gets part of it and has to figure out the rest. I'm going to spend more time reminding students that when I demonstrate something, if you're watching a Hatsumi video, anybody, and you're watching a demonstration, there's 80 or 90% of what's going on that you can't see. So to get over to condition-based thinking, right, we have to be able to ask that question, which should be a mantra. What has to be true? What conditions, what things have to be going on in that teacher's head, body, with their breathing, all that kind of stuff for them to do that one movement? Not the whole technique, just that one movement. Right? Where does my weight have to be on which leg? How much? Right? Heavy and down, so it's hard to move or be moved by him, or more light, and all of these things, right? To be able to duplicate it, right? Otherwise, we're going to look at what we see and think that that's it, and I just have to duplicate that. See, that's outcome-based thinking, except that it's completely glossing over the process of having to figure out what they're doing. Because even if I explain, just like I did with the muscles around the knees to get the bones into a position where they're more hovering than just stationary, what the hell does that mean? I had to figure those things out. Hatsumi Sensei had to figure those things out. Shoshi had to figure those things. Okay, so yeah, it's a lot of work, right, to make it possible. Okay, just like Hatsumi Sensei said, the kata is not the lesson. The kata is only the indication of where you need to start to understand, right? And we have to work the process, okay? And we have to understand that most of this, okay, is about preparation. Okay? Preparation for what? The chaos, the actual attack, the manipulative gaslighter, whatever. Okay? We're not training for training's sake. I mean, some people are, because it's fun. I mean, people can train for whatever they want. But if we're training for the same reasons that this art was put together, it's preparation. And not for a damn belt. And not for a feel-good moment. Training for that moment where I'll switch over here to my workplace violence consulting gig, right? What I put in place or help companies put in place are things that make them a hard target. Hard isn't difficult. Okay? So people look at what's there and go, shit, there's easier. I got it. Okay? We're preparing every class, every lesson, every KUDEN that you're listening to, every Whiteboard Wednesday, every other thing that you're listening to or reading or whatever, I hope, right? Is preparation for the storm. In the beginning, we have to get good at fighting the storm. Hopefully, if we're paying attention and we're not getting stuck on ninjutsu as a substitute for karate or boxing or whatever, then we'll get to the gist of controlling the environment, controlling how people see us, controlling how people are acting around us, by setting boundaries, those kind of things, and how they see us, Chunin level stuff, right? Then we can maybe control how the storm operates around us, right? Or what we're really doing is being able to detect when the storm's coming so we can remove ourselves from its path. It's like somebody living in Florida and goes to visit family, right? When that storm warning happens. And again, if we stick with it, we get into the Okuden levels, right, and get much, much deeper, and we actually start looking at conditions, right? The things that allow causality to produce certain types of effects. than what everybody sees as, dude, you were lucky, man. You were away visiting your family. A freaking storm hit. Man, lucky you weren't here. Except that if I lived in Florida, I would know when hurricane season was. July to November every year. I know that because my wife and I take cruises to the Caribbean. And yeah, we save a lot of money by traveling during that time of year. But of course, we keep an eye on things and whatnot. But that's tuned-in level stuff. But what if it just looked to other people like, you know, you just weren't here when that happened because you were paying attention to things and you were paying attention to causality, so that what looked like luck, and that's how everybody frames it, it was actually a preemptive plan. Right? Like I have a preemptive plan that if shit goes sideways in this country too much, and again, you don't need to know my politics because it doesn't matter. If they go sideways and it looks like border control or overreach or whatever is going to do anything, it'll just look like I moved to a Caribbean island and I'm doing KUDEN from there. Or maybe it won't be the Caribbean. But one must have plans of action and understand conditions for something to be true. Otherwise, we're always fighting the outcomes. We're always working on winning and not losing. Right? This is Fudo teaching. This is about non-attachment. This is about clarity. This is about a lot of things that most people who get involved in quote unquote martial arts, they don't not just know that they don't exist, they don't care. Because most of them think self-defense is about fighting anyway. Okay? So, again, right? I name the conditions, right? I clarify the consequences, and I leave the decision with you. That's my line in the sand as this new year dawns. Akeru, Akemashite Omedetō. This is a moment worth attention. Gozaimasu, said respectfully. Okay? I don't need you to believe me. Belief is optional. Consequences are not. Okay? So, Akemashite Omedetō Gozaimasu. Right? Congratulations on a new dawn. Right? Of course, right? As long as you're still around, I'll see you on the path. But let's go ahead and open it up for final questions, and we'll get this one wrapped up. What do you got, James? Anything? Anybody still awake?
I do not see any questions.
I did it again, didn't I? I either put them to sleep or I broke them. I hope not. I hope not. Okay? But unlike many, I don't need disciples. I don't need you to believe me. Way past that. Okay? And I'm tired. Not like retirement tired. I'm tired of doing the work to force feed or hand feed. It's not my job. Not my job. Okay. James, do you have anything? Am I missing anything? Oh, don't forget. Shit, we're a week away. Akeome 2026 kicks off this Friday. If you go to the event page, onlineninjaacademy.com/events, should be the top thing, right? It should be the top event. Kind of explains things and whatnot. Don't not go because it says it's high level stuff and it's the point of it's a 0 point of resistance, right? When a human body is engaged in doing the strength thing or doing the movement thing or whatever, there is a preparation moment that muscles and things are starting to fire, that literally you can do what you need to do. So you don't have to be the bigger one, the stronger one, the faster one, or whatever. Okay. Maybe the title is throwing people off because I called it the art of nothing. Right. But this all comes from multiple lineages. But the Gyokoryu, that's where I pulled this zero state or 0 point of resistance from. Not that we're doing all Gyokoryu things or anything like that, right? But the focus is that way. Of course, I've got some breakout things. I don't even know if my daughter sent me her little blurb for things. Of course, she's going to do psych stuff. But either way, if you can't make it live, we've got a virtual thing. I've got some students that sign in and they're in uniform and training all weekend. And even if you can't do any of that stuff, but you still want the lessons, then the videos are available. You can still pre-order them. I think the whole set. And we do, James, how much editing do you do? You just take out like little, like things where the camera was running, but nothing was happening and whatever, right? I mean, they're what's that?
Just like if we have a quick water break or something like that.
Yeah. So you're literally getting like all the training, even if it's like students working on stuff, for the whole thing. So what are 12 hours, give or take, 10 hours, 12 hours, something like that, of pretty raw video. Yeah, so you can pre-order that too. If you don't know where to find the things, you can always send things in, unless James already popped it in the chat. If he didn't, don't worry about it. As a matter of fact, if you go to the events page, on the left side under the options, I think there's a link right there to go to that page to pre-order things. So anyway, we got that, and then here coming up shortly, I will have the dates out. We're planning on going to Japan in April. That is a complete training trip, and when I say training trip, I don't mean we're going to eat, sleep, shit, go to training for physical training. I mean we are going to castles. We are going to historically significant places, and if we're not in a class where another teacher or soke is teaching, I'm teaching. It is a training trip, not a let's hang out with the guys and then go to class trip. Okay, so I'll have those details up and out for everybody here shortly. All right. Anything else, James?
No, sir.
All right. That's it, guys. I'll talk to everybody again next time. So, again, for the last time, Akemashite Omedetō Gozaimasu. Okay, I'll talk to you next time.
Get more of KUDEN Radio, subscribe through your favorite podcasting site, or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.